just one question when you were talking about books. Like, do you read every day?
To in the
Like,
side of the book, I would write
yeah, you have
notes.
some notes. Okay. And how many books do you buy a month? And how do you know that this is the book that you want to read? And I agree with you, like, books have the power to change life. I don't remember anything. Yeah. Hey everyone, I'm Sanjana. I'm a product marketing manager at Leadfeeder, and I also run this YouTube channel. So today I have Sangram with me on the show, and we're gonna have a peek at Sangram's bookshelf. So if you don't know who Sangram is, he's the co-founder of Terminus, author of two best-selling books on ABM, and the founder of the Peak community. So Sangram, welcome to the show, and how are you doing?
I'm good, Sanjana. I don't think I've ever done this. So I'm excited to share some of it. And a lot of people think this is like a fake shelf. So I think you and I both, no,
Exactly.
it's not. It's my real shelf. And I do read books,
Exactly.
so it's a hobby of mine.
Awesome. That's what made me do this video with you. Like, I've seen your bookshelf in the background and almost all of the videos that you do, right? So I'm damn sure everybody would have been like, what kind of books does Sangram reads, or is it the real shelf, or it's just the virtual background or something? So I thought we're gonna help. I thought we can help everyone by giving them a tour of the one and only Sangram's bookshelf. So before we begin, right? So tell us why you love reading books and why you have so many books in your bookshelf.
Well, I think it started about 5 years ago, Sanjay. I like prior to that, I wasn't a book nerd. As a matter of fact, I barely scraped my graduation in school. Like if you ask my parents, they'll be like, they tried everything to get me to read, and I wouldn't read. But I think as I got into building businesses and recognizing that one of the best things you can do is surround yourself with a bunch of really smart people that for $10, right? Like, and the best way to do that for $10 is to buy a book that they wrote. So I looked up the people that I followed, and most of them had some sort of book that was coming up. You think about Pat Lencioni, you think about Seth Godin, you think about all of these people who had all these amazing thoughts. Well, I can't afford to get with them one-on-one. So maybe let me just buy 10 of their books, 5 of their books. And I started reading it. And it's funny enough, after a certain amount of time, you can see the thought replicated. The original thought they had in the first book is also replicated in the fifth iteration of it with a little bit more finesse. So then you start seeing, okay, so this is really how this person thinks. It really corroborates to it. It made me a better leader, a better person, I think.
And how do you feel about the transition? Because 5 years back, you thought you can't, meet those, successful people, but now you're interviewing them. Like, you have Seth Godin on the show, you're talking to them. How does that feel?
Yeah, it's almost feels like the one. Sometimes we feel they're untouchable, right? Like you
Yeah,
can't reach to them, and
yeah,
and honestly, that's what I thought 5 years ago. But now, as you said, like Seth and Pat and all of these have become friends, and now we talk about, we have interviewed and conversations. But now there's nothing that I want from them. Like I think that is the part I want to share their word, and I want to share what they're saying and use their written and spoken word and use it for the good for out there. So there is no transaction there. It's all relational. And I felt like the more relational conversations you have, the better the conversation becomes. 5 years ago, if I was trying to get Pat or Seth, I would have done it purely because I want to build my brand and associate myself with them. It would have been such a selfish way of
yeah.
doing it. But now it's much different, and I think they can see it, and they appreciate that.
Awesome. That's really great to know. And I agree with you, like, books have the power to change life. When you start realizing this, you become addicted to reading, right? So I completely agree on that. So Sangram, I can't wait to see your bookshelf. Just give it a tour and take the stage.
All right, well, we'll do. I got a few of here. It was really hard to figure out which one you like, which one I like, because there's so many of them. But here is the one that I think most people probably know: Who Moved My Cheese?
Let this, yeah,
Yeah, this is the smallest probably book of all the books I have, and
yeah.
I've read this probably 5 times, and it's really goes into the mindset that we all have. Everybody should be reading this book, Who Moved My Cheese? I even use it in my presentations. And so there is another one, Jeffrey Moore's book, Crossing the Chasm, from a business perspective. I think it became a full-on legend in every way. And I think when you think about businesses from a business perspective, I really, really enjoyed his book. It's about how markets are created. And, from helping build category, I think this was one of the anchor points for my understanding of it. There's also, we talked about Seth Godin, a couple of books. I mean, really, even look at Seth's book. They're like tiny, some of it, right? Tiny. And I think I'm starting to love more tiny books. You don't need a bigger book for, repeating yourself. But some of them I would buy just for the title of it, because it reminds me what I need to think about. So this one, they said, is like all marketers are, and he's crossed out, our liars tell stories. And it reminds me that I need to have a balance between telling stories versus going almost becoming a liar, because you can very quickly become that if you start not autocorrecting and self-correcting yourself. So it's really important. So this is a good one. Seth has another book that I love. This, from a marketing perspective, another one that I think we all have talked about is the Story Brand from Don Miller. Don is just a great person. He wrote another book, Business Made Simple, which I also have, and it talks about a framework in that book that I think I've used it all along. How do you talk about the problem? How do you talk about the customer, and never really talk about your product? You know me, Sanjala, for long enough to know that I've hardly talked about Terminus and exactly what the features are or anything like that. Exactly. So this one is a really good one. Then on just off the cuff other books, there is this book called The Magic of Thinking Big. And this is like, I probably have like notes, peeled off pages and underlines all over this book. And I keep going back to this probably every couple of years to just recognize that whatever I'm thinking, I'm not thinking big enough. And it's important for everybody to start looking at it. A lot of times we think, oh, that's really big. It's actually not big enough if you really start anchoring on it. So we need to kind of push ourselves to think bigger. So when I think about businesses, think about life, let's think about a bigger business. Let's think about a bigger opportunity. Let's think about a bigger play here than what we might try to do in the moment. So this book is really good. It has a bunch of stories of how people started to think big. And really, when you think big, magically, a lot of those things start happening. There is another book, Bill Porter, 10 Things I Learned from Bill Porter. Now, this is a book about this guy who was literally walking on the street doing door-to-door salesmanship. And his whole story is about what he learned about people and how he actually sold and became one of the best salesperson in the world from door-to-door salesperson. Like, you think about that job, like you think about cold calling is bad. Think about going door-to-door salesperson. So he did that. And there's a whole story about how he was able to connect and build relationships on the street by knocking on somebody's door at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. The last thing people want to talk to somebody is a salesperson at your door. And he did that, and he did well for entire life. So it's really cool. And then there are a couple of big things. As a guy who's married, I have a Bible study with my wife and a couple of folks. Sacred Marriage is a really good one. It talks about like, what if God designed marriage to make us holy more than happy?
Oh, okay.
And I think we think about, we all are so focused on our happiness that we forget about holiness. As a matter of fact, like John Maxwell has this thought around success and significance that really mimics what this book is all about, which is success is all about yourself and significance is about others. So if we pursue significance, we will be successful and we will be happy. But if you pursue success, we will never be fully happy and fully fulfilled, because success is always temporary. So go after significance as opposed to success. So Sacred Marriage, me and my wife, we've done with a bunch of couples, and we continue to read that book. We want to do this like every year and reimagine our marriage and how we want to think about it. So that's a good one. And then, as a faith guy, I have my Bible, so I read it. We read it as a family. That's our thing. That's our faith. It keeps us grounded. It keeps us recognizing that it's not about us. It's about somebody greater than us. So those are some of the books that I read.
Awesome. I think I've read almost most of the books. I think I've not read 3-4 books from your collections, but I think I've read most, and I can totally relate to what you're saying. And I think these are some of the the greatest collections that everyone should have. Like, especially if they're a marketer, then reading about building a story brand and Seth Godin's books. Those are, some real, great collections that marketers should have. So yeah, awesome. Like, just one question when you were talking about books, like, do you read every day?
That is my goal. Either I would, so the way I do reading right now, and it obviously fluctuates. It's not, I wish it would be that consistent and that daily. But I would flip it. If I'm reading Bible in the morning, then at night before I go to sleep, I'll read a book for 15, 20 minutes. Or if I start the day with reading a book because I'm just into it at that moment, then at the night I'll end up with reading Bible for a little bit. So both sides, I want to read as I wake up and as I go before I go to sleep as part of my
Oh,
journaling and all that stuff. So those, and it's not a lot. It's really 15 minutes. It's not that I sit
okay.
around, with a cigar and watching outside the window, reading a book. Like, that's really not, it's really 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. A lot of the books are pretty easy to read. And then ultimately, a lot of times I won't even read the entire book if it's not, I'm not trying to force
Oh,
myself to it.
okay.
I'm looking for one idea. I'm looking for one thing that is interesting enough for me to go and implement or do something or recognize something, or it made me think about something. That's the goal. The goal is not to read a book. The goal is to learn
Okay.
something new about myself, learn something new, to do something practically, learn something that I may not be aware of, or just it's about learning. It is not at all about trying to read a book. Like, I see a lot of people like, I want to read 35 books a year and stuff. I never had a goal. I don't think I ever want to have a goal like that. I want to learn every day. I want to get 1% better
Okay.
every day. And that's the goal. And I think book reading allows you to kind of almost pause. Like, Sanjana, you read books. So it almost pauses you. That's why I don't like to read the electronic versions of book or audio version of the book. I'll do it if I have to when I'm driving, and when we used to drive and we used to fly. But at home,
Yeah.
I really love, like, every book. As a matter of fact, what you will see as part of every book is, I will actually do something like this. I don't know if you can see it, but in the side
No.
of the book, I would write
Yeah, you have
notes,
some notes. Okay.
right? So I would write, when I read a book, I would write about the page number and the 4 or 5 ideas I got from the book.
Yeah, I do that as well. Yeah. But I don't
Yeah,
do
so
it on the
that,
book, but I just have a notepad where I just note down the page number and the ideas. And that's easy to go back to when I want to, find that reference.
yeah, it's so easy. And it reminds me of, like, why I love the book, because a lot of times you forget, okay, well, that was a good book. But
Yeah.
then you ask, like, what do you like about that? What do you remember? You're like, I don't
I
know.
don't remember anything. Yeah.
So it
Yeah,
helps me
it's the
remember.
same with me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And how many books do you buy a month? And how do you know that this is the book that you want to read?
I just like you and many others, like, I look at what people are reading. I read when people say, here are the top 10 books. A lot of times
Yeah.
it will be reference of somebody else reading it. I listen to talks that get me to say, hey, this might be a good book. But a lot of times I would just go to Amazon, and if I'm interested in a topic, like, for example, the book that I'm just publishing now, I bought every type of go-to-market book. I bought like
Oh,
5 books to read, and then I read each one of them end to end to see what's in the book. And if I were to write something, well, how's it going to be different than this book? Is this even, do I even have anything to offer that is different than these books? If not, I'm not going to write a book. It doesn't make any sense. So I bought like everything that was written on that topic. I read all of them, and then I began the process of my own ideation.
awesome. Can you also tell us more about the book that you're launching? I
Yeah,
don't
it's
think a
it's
lot of them know. Yeah.
yeah, I've kind of kept it in stealth mode. I've kept mostly in the peak community,
Yeah.
and try to be true to the tribe that we're building. But yeah, it's called Move. It's a 4-question go-to-market framework. And as a word, like, it's funny. It's all the books that I've written, and you've read a couple of them, Sanjana. They're all
Yeah,
frameworks.
I
Like,
have.
Flip My Funnel is a
Yeah.
framework. Team
Yeah.
in the ABM is B2B, Team was a framework. So I feel like I'm the framework guy. I look at frameworks. I have framework for everything. My wife would be like, I have a framework for journaling. I have a framework for and it's all ends up becoming a 4 or 5 letter framework, because that's how I think and can put in practice. So Move is similarly a framework of how businesses can go to market. what I learned in the process is most companies fail. As a matter of fact, I was doing a study yesterday and we talked about it. So I've written it fresh in front of me. There is only 0.04% of SaaS companies hit 50 million.
Yeah, I think I've read this stat somewhere. Yeah, I know this. Correct.
I think it was on by Jason Lumpkin or somebody, but I heard it yesterday that I had study on how many do 10 million and stuff like that, but 0.04, 0.04. Like, so
that's scary.
That is scary, right? And if you really think about why do companies and businesses fail? Well, they fail and they fail like a lot of times in 30 million or 15 million or 20 million, right? Like, wait a minute, that me at that time you might think that this is gonna fly, but they fail. And can never get to even 50 or exit or in a proper way. Well, they don't fail because their vision all of a sudden is not good. Companies don't fail because their team and culture all of a sudden is bad. I believe that companies fail more and more now is because they don't have a great go-to-market transformation process. They don't know how do we go from a problem market fit company to a product market fit. There's a transformation that needs to happen as a business. Then how do you go from a product market fit to platform market fit? There is a transformation that needs to happen. And a lot of the companies think it's straight up and to the right when you see a lot of those metrics. Oh, 1 million, then 5, and then 10. No. It's a squiggly line. And if you can get yourself out of it, then you will fall off. And that's what this book is about. How do companies figure out their go-to-market strategy, the transformation questions they should be asking? That's around the MOVE framework. And the funny thing is there are only 4 questions that you need to really nail on. And that's what the MOVE framework is all about. But regardless of your stage of the business, problem, product, or platform, you keep asking the same 4 questions. Your answers are different because you're in a different stage of the business, but it's still the same 4 questions. And it was really phenomenal just to go through the research and do this book together.
Awesome. And when is it launching?
It's launching September 21st.
Oh, okay. In just 20 days. All right.
Yeah.
Will it also launch in India on the same day?
It should be on available all places. And if not, awesome. I'm sure it will be available electronically so that an audio version of it.
Okay.
But I hope so. And I plan to.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sangram. I think this was super fun. All right. Do you have anything else to cover with regards to books? And do you have any advice to the listeners about reading books?
I think I'll just reiterate, if somebody did not catch, it's not about how big your bookshelf is. It's really not. It's really not about how many books you read in life. I think, and you've heard me say this, is becoming intentional is more important than being brilliant. So to me, I want to be intentional about how I grow. And I would implore that everybody should think about like just growing. So if you read a book and if you even get one thing from it, and you might get that in 5 minutes and 5 pages, or you may get it in 10 minutes and 10 pages. It doesn't matter. You get one thing that you can implement or learn, you should check the box and get going on it. You don't have to read a full book many times. You just have to get to the main nuggets of it. And when you do, implement it, do something about it, apply it to something in life. And I think then you have the joy of reading book. Otherwise, it's work.
I completely agree. I think, Sangram, all the successful people with whom I have interacted with are almost always good readers. Like they read and read. They constantly seek new ways to become better. There's this famous saying called "all leaders are readers."
Yeah.
So the choice of books and the podcast that you listen to reveals a lot about your thoughts, your desires, your values, the values you believe in. So I think reading books is a necessity for those who want to grow and for those who want to become successful. So I think this video should be a great advice to all of them who are looking to get started reading books or who just want that motivation to start reading books. That was lovely, Sangram, and that was a great show. And I'll see you again in the next video where we'll play a fun Never Have I Ever with Sangram Vajre.
All right, sounds good. I'm excited. Thank you, Sanjana.
Thank you. Bye-bye.